Hi guys, thanks for joining me today. My name is Alexia and I'm going to be talking about the 5 basic principles in Pilates. My training incorporates a lot of the classical exercises Mr. Pilates created. However, accompanied with those exercises is also a contemporary approach which looks at the anatomical positioning of body parts to optimize performance. Stop Pilates incorporates modern theories of exercise science and spinal rehabilitation, which involve these 5 basic principles. The basic principles include breathing, pelvic placement, rib cage placement, scapular movement and stabilization, as well as head and cervical placement. By introducing these principles, individuals can increase their proprioception or body awareness. This ensures mind-body awareness with focus on neuromuscular performance and on core stability, while safely balancing strength and flexibility with precision and control. Let's go through them using simple exercises. Find a quiet sitting area, and let's come to sitting comfortably on our sits bones. From there, you can hug your knees and round your spine up and over your thighs. We start with breathing, in through the nose and out through the mouth, using the deep belly. Imagine the air that you're letting out on your exhale is fogging up a mirror. That's how you can activate the transverse abdominis, or deep support muscles around the waist. Transverse is important because it stabilizes the lower back and hip area. Engaging the lower belly also helps avoid unnecessary tension in the neck and shoulders. This breathing helps relaxation. Notice that the breath in lifts the ribs up and out, and with the breath out, the ribs close forward and down. Take a few more breaths here. Moving on to number 2, pelvic placement. Slowly begin to roll your spine down, coming into a lying down position. Knees can be bent or feet can be flat. What we are looking for is the natural curve of the low back, a natural lordotic curve. What that position looks like is that the hip bones and the pubic bone lie approximately in a horizontal plane, parallel to the floor when lying supine. Why this is important is because neutral promotes good shock absorption and more efficient movement patterns throughout the body. The curve of the spine is what releases and distributes all the forces outward. On the other hand, we have what's known as imprinted position, which is a very slight posterior pelvic tilt, a slight low back flexion, which is gained to stabilize the core if neutral cannot be maintained. You can look at the little tiny wrinkles I'm creating in my shirt so that you can see how small this imprint position really is. It is not just a posterior pelvic tuck, but rather it's an activation of more layers of abdominal muscle, which include internal and external obliques. Those same muscles are required for basic principle number 3, or rib cage placement. Transverse abdominis and obliques attach to the lower ribs, so we don't want to see them popping when we take our arms up and overhead. But rather, our core is used to stabilize the rib cage and therefore the upper spine during movement of the arms. Take your arms up and back a few times. Notice that the movement is happening in the arm, not in the ribs popping up, not in the spine coming up off the mat. Moving on to scapular movement and stabilization. The scapula, or flat bone up against the back, our ribs, has 6 different movements: protraction, retraction, elevation, depression, upward and downward rotation. I'm moving through elevation and depression right now in the video a few times. And then I'm going to go into some protraction and retraction, the sliding of the a shoulder blade around, hugging the ribs, and then releasing it back down. And then I'm going to go into some upward and downward rotation. Because the scapula does not directly attach to the ribs or to the spine, it has a lot of mobility. So your upper body is very flexible, which means it must be counterbalanced with stability. Therefore, it's important to balance the surrounding muscles and to control the movement of the scapula. The scapula should lie flat on the rib cage and glide across the ribs without winging. Stabilizing the scapula is necessary at the initiation of every exercise. And last but not least is the head and cervical placement, or neck placement. So the cervical spine, or the neck, also has its own curve. Just like how your low back has a lordotic curve, your neck has what's known as an anterior convex curve. And the head needs to be balanced directly above the shoulders, whether in sitting or standing. Pads and pillows can be used if needed to prevent any hyperextension from happening. The neck should continue the line of the thoracic spine, right, the rib cage. So whether we are rounding the spine, extending the spine, side bending, or rotating the spine, the neck needs to follow the line of the spine. As I begin to go into my ab prep, flexing, rounding my spine, I'm looking for the proper position that my neck is following. My neck should not be going too far back or extending, nor should it be jamming and going too far forward and doing all of the work. We only need a gentle chin nod to dynamically stabilize and to avoid any strain. Well, that's all, folks. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you learned something new. I hope you continue to use these principles while doing your workout from home. It will make a big difference in muscular tone, strength, avoiding injury, and overall your well-being.